Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats here at chess.com to continue my video series on the correspondence team match between my video lessons group and the team CARPE DIEM. This was played on board 90 of a 210 board match. We're currently leading by a dominating score of 182.5 to 59.5. That's just better than 3 to 1. That's what we seem to be maintaining over the last number of results. 210 points and a half will clinch the match, so we'll get there pretty soon, I expect. Anyway, uh, let's have a look at these two games. Our man is the Grimminsa, and we have mid 1700s versus mid 1600 rating advantage versus prestonpapa. And we're going to go into the Nimzo Indian. It's the old classical system. This was fashionably popular back in the 1920s. Today they favor moves like F3 or E3. There's plenty of moves playable, but black's supposed to do okay out of the Nimzo Indian. And usually, I remember reading when I was much younger, you don't play this c5 pawn up until white has played his bishop to d3. Now, don't ask me all the reasons why. I don't remember. But if you're playing white or black in the Nimzo Indian, you might want to do a little research into this. The normal, I think, is like e3, and then you play d5, and then you answer bishop d3 with c5. You kind of go into something like this. But anyway, back to the main line. So I guess white does have the theoretical possibility of playing d5 in this position, but he opts not to do it. Just transpose into the main line. And yet he can do it again, although maybe he doesn't want to now. This pawn would want to advance to e4 in one move, and white would have lost a tempo. And now a3 usually comes at some point, and we're back in pretty much the main line. This position has been reached countless times at all rating levels. The chances are about even. Here white opts to make an exchange in the center. I'm not sure if queen takes is the correct move. I believe it's e takes. I'm sure both moves have been played. The reason black wants to take with the d pawn or e pawn is to be able to activate this bishop. Okay, and this kind of helps white a little bit, but then again, how so much so we'll find out here in just a few moves. It'll be clarified. This does, by pushing this pawn up, this helps this bishop get into action. A lot of times white's saddled with a very bad dark squared bishop. And because this pawn is no longer on c3, this bishop can get some mobility here, as we'll see here in a minute. And I'm not sure if taking is correct, because this kind of tends to help white. Maybe he chooses to take back with the knight. Now he might have to accept an isolated pawn, but he could be doing it with the compensation that this bishop is going to get active. It's often a piece that black or the white doesn't use too much. But instead, white opts to take with the pawn. Now we get the so-called classical hanging pawn scenario. What are hanging pawns? Here they are. I'm going to point to them. Why are they hanging? Well, together they're strong. Look at the squares they're controlling. They're controlling a lot of turf. Generally, they become, well, they're hanging because, I didn't answer that yet. They're hanging because they can't be protected by other pawns. So they're kind of like hanging out there in the middle of nowhere. If either one advances, it creates an outpost for black to put a piece on. But the hanging pawns, they're not a weakness. They can become a weakness. They can also become a strength. It's a very interesting strategic imbalance that is, if you know how to play this, you can handle it from either side of the board. Generally speaking, the pawns are strongest when there's more pieces on the board. In that respect, it's similar to an isolated queen pawn. You can play with an isolated queen pawn if you're keeping all your pieces on the board. But as the pieces start disappearing, the isolated queen pawn starts to become weaker. And it's similar here. There have been two sets of minor pieces exchanged. Now, white's objective is to eventually get a tactical push where one of those pawns advances and opens up lines for his pieces. And that's what white is going to try, but I do believe white tried it too quick. And white gets himself a little bit of trouble, and we'll talk about that when the moment arises. Right now, both sides need to complete their development. White hasn't even castled yet, and this is the stage where white definitely needed to stop and castle. Does black have anything? See, white doesn't castle. Let's just take a look at castling real quick. Okay, what can black do? Well, I mean, I guess the immediate question is, do you want to go threaten a checkmate? Well, maybe, maybe not. It can, if G3, maybe Queen C3 could be a nuisance. Could be. Then white's having to weaken his pawn structure a little bit. And then all of a sudden, the knight hops into E3. Let's see. So, but I still think castling is the correct choice. Now, is knight G4 the correct move? That's the question. I don't think white has time to grab this pawn with check and then deal with the mate. So, can't play F4 right now because E3 comes in. So let's go back to this move again. Now Queen C3 or Queen C6 rather. Now we have another mate threat to deal with. I guess white can't castle. So something has gone wrong in white's position here. What has gone wrong? Maybe what white needed to play was bishop E2. Okay, why bishop E2? You know, this is the natural square. Well, there's a lot of reasons why. Let's continue on. Okay, now knight G4 is impossible. You're dropping a piece, and if white or black threatens a checkmate, let's see, let's get white castled. If black threatens a checkmate, it can be answered with bishop F3, and white's okay here. He's still got his hanging pawns, but black hasn't accomplished much. See, white's taken the hanging pawns willingly, but he's done it down 2 pieces, and here maybe a third piece can get traded, and those pawns are going to become weaker. Now, when can they become strong? They can become strong if there's a tactical push of them, and I've mentioned it before in other videos. Gosh, if you watch all my videos, you're really going to get good at chess. But there's a classic game with the hanging queen pawns, or hanging pawns on C4 and D4. It came in the World Championship 1981 between defending champion Anatoly Karpov as black versus the challenger Viktor Korchnoi as white. And I said the first match game. So this game is easily available if you do a little Google search. Karpov took the hanging pawns as black on C5 and D5. But essentially what he was doing was he just sat there and kept his position solid and kept making little minor tweaks and improvements to it. And Korchnoi had no chance of breaking through. And as I mentioned, you want to find a way you can tactically advance one of those pawns. And that's what Karpov was able to do. He was able to push his queen pawn up, and his pieces sprang to life, and Korchnoi just got torn to shreds. Okay. And that's what white's trying to do here, is do a tactical advance of the pawns, but he tries it too quick, and he's doing it when his development is incomplete. And I think that's what he didn't play there. He played bishop D3. He does it now. And we've already agreed that maybe castling is a mistake, so maybe white has to stop and punt for a moment and play a move like F3. As ugly as it is, it does stop knight G4. I think it weakens E3, but black isn't ready to put a knight in there. He can't get there on the 2 direct paths. If the knight wants to go menace E3, he's going to have to do it by way of F5, and that's several moves from happening. Knight to E8, but you got to cover H7 first. Move the queen, get her to D. Move the queen, so you get the knight to D6 and get to F5. The alternative is G6, knight H5, knight G7, knight F5, and white has a lot of moves himself. He can construct a plan against that. So maybe F3 was the best move, but this is going to backfire on white, and he's going to end up blundering here very shortly. And it looks like maybe white's getting somewhere, but he's making sacrifices that I don't think he has enough compensation for. He's giving up 1 pawn now, and if he takes with the queen, black develops a rook to C8. If he takes with the bishop, black plays a move something like rook c8. Here, let me show you. It's just all of a sudden white's got a little nightmare on his hands. This puts a pin on the bishop, and then black has a threat of queen c6 trying to attack the bishop and mate on g2. So I don't think white's trying to give up the pawn was any good. You might say, well, hey, there's a removing the defender motive here, but it's going to backfire. See, here the point here, you want to take this. If you take this, you're looking at if queen takes, bishop takes check. But black does very well here in two ways. He can check the king, and if white wants to give up castling, black's gained a lot, and just from that, or black can just take, and the check is still threatened, and white doesn't have time to grab this pawn, even with check, because he's got a loose rook down here. You can't save both the bishop. The threat is g6. You can't save both the bishop and the rooks. But I think the check directly before you take on f6 is fine. You're just getting a pin, and black's doing quite well here. There's a threat on a1, and black is going to take on c4 and just be a minimum of a clear pawn ahead. Anyway, let's back it up to see what actually happened. White castled, and now for the moment, he didn't take. He retreated the bishop. Black is up 2 pawns, and it's his move. So he puts the rook on c8, helps secure that pawn. He wants to keep it. And, white's got to deal with a mate threat. He covers that. And now white is making trades, and these trades are actually helping black. Even though black is going to have to suffer a broken pawn shield in front of his king, white doesn't really have enough compensation. He's given up 2 pawns, and all his hopes are pinned upon administering a checkmate against the weakened black king side. But the position's open. Black has and will find resources, and here they come. First off, improve the position of the rook, cover the 6th rank. White tries to activate the rook. Black invites a queen exchange, which white needs to decline. And another tempo on the queen. And now black improves the position of his queen. And white's desperately trying to find something, but there's just no squares, no way to break through. White wants to play rook g7, but what's his follow-up? Black goes and threatens mate. White covers that. And black just finds a clever move here, queen e5. And white's going to be forced to trade queens and go into a bad ending. But, I guess it doesn't amaze me anymore. People make silly blunders in correspondence chess when they have 3 days to move. They're just not taking their time. White plays queen h4, and whoops, there goes a rook with check. So faced with the prospect of being down a rook with no hope, white threw in the towel, and well played by the Grimminsa. Okay, let's switch to the other game and see what happened there. Actually, we have something kind of similar in a way. Let's back it up. I don't know why it puts it on move 5. It never puts it on the right at the start. Well, they fix it in version 3. Stay tuned. Okay, so we're going into a Najdorf variation of the Sicilian defense. This too has been played countless times. Normally, queen c7 is the most common move, but knight c6 is a playable move. And I'm sure this position has been reached also countless times. But here, black has to undergo a little tactical shot here with e5. And I don't know if this is theory or not. White now has a double attack. He's attacking both knights. But black has resources here. We'll see what they are. Blocks the diagonal, saves the loose knight on f6. And for the moment, white's picked up a pawn. But we'll see what happens here. Now, white gets his piece back, but black gets his pawn back with check. And now rook a7, and black thinks he's got everything under control, but he doesn't pay attention to what's going on. His best move is probably rook d7 here. And the idea with that is you're trying to win this pawn. But black outwits himself and makes an attack, and suddenly white's got a skewer against two bishops. It's kind of rare. Usually a skewer, you're attacking the more valuable piece up front, and the least valuable piece is behind. And here bishops are equal, but it's still a skewer. What else do you call it? An X-ray? But suddenly black's got some problems here to solve. So he counterattacks the white queen, and white just answers by attacking the rook. Now black's got two pieces loose, and he has to lose a piece. So he saves his rook, and there goes his bishop. And white's just up ahead a whole night. Black has nothing to show for it. And after knight c5, black decided that he didn't want to play this out. He's just feeling the heat. He's down a piece. He has no play. So it was a good 2 wins by the Grimminsa. He played well. Black just rushed a couple moves and lost heavy material. The games could have gone on 20, 30 more moves easily if not for these blunders. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. I'm covering these games as promised. Give you guys an idea the mistakes players of various ratings make. You learn a lot by watching all of these. If you're just watching a few, you're not helping yourself. Hopefully you have time to watch them all. Anyway, I'm catching up still. A lot to go. I will get there. Thanks so much for your time. Take care.